All right, good evening. We'll call this to order at 4:30. Announcement, all open sessions of the Board of Trustees are recorded and streamed in real time at fuhsd.net. We're at the Bob Burton's Performing Arts Center, Fallbrook Union High School, 2400 South Stagecoach Lane, Fallbrook, California, 92028. In a second, we'll be going into closed session. Closed session agenda is Public Employee Discipline, Dismissal, and Release, Government Section Code 54957. Conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Government Section Code 54956.9 D1. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Section Code 54956.9 D2. Claim number 223-0411. Conference with labor negotiations, Government Section Code 54957.6, District Negotiator Ilza Garza Gonzalez, Superintendent, Employee Organizations, FHSTA and SEIU, and the unrepresented employees, classified management, certificated management, and confidential employees. Then we'll have the superintendent evaluation, and then we'll have the chief business officer evaluation. Opportunities for members of the public to address the board on any of these items described in this agenda for closed session will be taken now, and an opportunity will be granted later for open session items. Government Section Code 54954.3. Is there any public comment?
There is none.
Thank you. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn to closed session. 5:34. We're going to start with the flag salute. Oscar, are you going to lead us with that, please? All right, thank you. Roll call, Board of Trustees, Eddie Jones, President, I am here. Oscar Carlampio, Vice President.
Present.
Thank you. Paul Christensen, Clerk. Present, thank you. Trustee Area 1 is vacant, Trustee Area 2 is vacant. Superintendent Ilza Garza Gonzalez.
Present.
Thank you. All right, just a reminder that all open session of the Board of Trustees are recorded and streamed in real time at fuhsd.net. Informal review of the governing team's norms. The Board of Trustees approves norms are that we be respectful, be approachable, be open-minded, be communicative with no surprises, be willing to listen, be prepared, and be trustworthy. Report from closed session. Public Employee and Discipline Dismissal and Release, Government Section Code 54957, nothing to report. Conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Government Section Code 54956.9 D1, nothing to report. Conference with legal counsel anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Section Code 54956.9 D2, claim number 223-0411. In a 3-0 vote in favor, the board denied claim number 223-0411. Next is legal conference with labor negotiations. Government Section Code 54957.6, District Negotiator Ilza Garza Gonzalez, Superintendent. Employee organizations FHSDA and SEIU. Unrepresented employees, classified management, certificated management, and confidential employees, nothing to report. Superintendent evaluation, nothing to report, and CBO evaluation, nothing to report. Next, we have an action item to adopt tonight's agenda. Can I have a motion on that, please?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Christensen, second by Mr. Carlampio. Are there any additions or deletions?
Yes, we do have an addition. We have a presentation from our Citizens Oversight Committee, and that will be added after item C under presentations. It will be item D, Citizens Oversight Committee report.
All right, thank you. Any other changes? Any discussion? All right, call for the vote. Mr. Carlampio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Mr. Christensen? Aye. Aye. I don't know if your mic is working, is it?
No, mic isn't working.
You turn yours off.
Mr. Arnold? We have a microphone that isn't working. Mr. Christensen's?
Test. This one work. Testing.
I'll go ahead and vote aye.
All right, Ms. Carlampio votes aye, Mr. Christensen votes aye, Mr. Jones, I also vote aye. Area 1 is vacant, Area 2 is vacant. We adopted agenda with the addition on the Citizens Oversight Committee. Thank you. Presentations.
Yes, our first presentation is actually a Zoom presentation by Mr. William Shinoff. It's California School District versus Facebook and Instagram. Mr. Shinoff, welcome.
I think the mic is off.
No, I believe he's frozen.
Can you hear me? Okay, it's echoing on your side. With this. Okay. Would you like me to start?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. I'll try to make this short. My name is William Shinoff. I'm an attorney with the France Law Group out of San Diego. I run our public entity practice. And I want to give you a little bit of background about this social media litigation that we're handling. So first, let me let you know who the defendants are in this case. The defendants are Meta, which is the parent company to Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, and TikTok. And what we're claiming in this case is a number of causes of action, specifically public nuisance, negligence, and gross negligence. And what we are claiming in this case is that these companies have created a very harmful platform to children that's addictive, and that they haven't warned children who are one of the majority users of their product about the harms of their product. And furthermore, that they have not taken steps to make it safer for children. And so what we're trying to do in this case is hold them accountable for the harm that we've seen, and also get them to change the way they run their companies. We just wrapped up litigation against Juul, the vaping company, for the vaping epidemic that we saw with children. And we had a great successful result for the school districts that were involved in that case. And so the way that case was run is the same way that this case is. So this is not a class action. So we're not asking your district to join on to a case and sign on to one lawsuit. What this is a mass action. What that means is that we file individual lawsuits on behalf of every school district that we represent, and then they're consolidated into one courtroom, and they're all tried together at the same time. The main difference between that is, one, the attorney fees are structured very differently, and also at the end of the day, the board has the decision of how this case ends. In a class action, the case ends, you have an opportunity to opt out, and you can litigate it on your own. But in this case, we all litigate it together. If there is a resolution, the board can decide whether they want to accept the resolution or continue to litigate. And furthermore, the potential benefit on the monetary standpoint is better for the client in a mass action case, in a class action. So let me talk about first the non-monetary component of what we're trying to achieve in this case. So the way us as attorneys can make change through litigation is what's called injunctive relief. So in this case, we're asking for an injunction, which would require these companies to comply with this court order. Specifically, what we're trying to ask for is a change to their algorithm. So that these companies' algorithm is what sends content to you. It knows you better than you. And so what internal documents have shown from this company is that they have studied how do we keep children on our platform. And what they've shown is that we need to push harmful and divisive content to children because that's what keeps them on the platform. At the same time, they've done studies about what is the effect when children are on these platforms for extended periods of time. And what they've seen is that there's now been, over the past 10 years they've been in existence, an increase in anxiety, depression, eating disorders, suicidal ideation, and even suicide. And they've decided to ignore those results, not make changes because of the bottom line profits for the company. And so that is one thing we want to change, because recent studies have shown that children between the ages of 10 to 18, 60% are spending 7 hours a day on these platforms. Further, we just had an advisory from the Surgeon General 3 weeks ago, the US Surgeon General, which said that we have a youth mental health crisis as a result of social media, and these companies need to change. And so that's what we're trying to do. Further, we want more parental controls on these platforms. We want the parents to be able to see who their children are talking to, who they're able to talk to, how much time they're spending on the platforms, be able to control that, and what type of content they're seeing. Finally, what we also want to do is open up the lines of communication between school districts and these platforms, because we're not trying to get rid of social media. There's absolutely benefits to social media, but we want for it to be safe. But one thing that we're hearing from administrators across the country is that they will reach out to these platforms, whether it be because there's a threat to a school or there's a harmful post about a child on their platform, and they never receive a call back. And there's harm that sometimes occurs as a result of the non-response. So those are the fundamental changes that we're trying to create in this case. Further is the monetary standpoint. So what we're trying to do is get funds for school districts to be able to increase mental health resources, education, and training. And so two main questions I get from school boards regarding this case is, one is the time commitment to be involved. Unlike regular litigation where there's one party against a number of parties, there's not going to be depositions or mass document production. The court will select a number of districts to be the litigating school districts. That will be on a voluntary basis, and we discuss that with the clients of what that looks like. But for those who are the non-litigating, doing the active role, all that will require staff is to complete what's called a court order discovery questionnaire. And for a district your size, that should take about 1 to 2 hours of staff time. So that's it for staff time to be on this case. The other question I get is regarding the cost. So we're working on this case on a contingency fee basis. So what that means is if there's no financial recovery for the district, then the district will pay no fees and no costs. Further, instead of the normal 40% fee that plaintiff attorneys will charge in litigation, we do ours at 25%, so more funds will end up going to the district. So bottom line, there's no financial risk for the district to get involved. I know that there's some sound issues going on, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to type it in and I'll answer the questions. A little over 500 school districts across the country in this litigation. 80 of those are from California. In Jewel, I represented over 1,000. And, my expectation is that it will be well over 1,000 schools.
Are you able to hear me? All right, so no questions to you. Thank you very much. I thought that was very thorough and complete. We were just, because of our mic issues, just so that everybody could hear, we were just sort of discussing next steps. This is just awareness only. This is an information item. There's no vote. If we wanted to, I would believe we would have an opportunity to vote on this officially in the near future and then decide then if we wanted to do it. So that was really the discussion we were having here. So no questions to that. Thank you very much.
Our next presentation is from Ms. Noemi Avila Zamudio from NAZ on the bond program and construction updates. Is there
It on. Okay, perfect. Good evening, Board President Jones, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Garza Gonzalez, members of the audience. My name is Noemi Avila Zamudio. I'm the district's bond program manager, and I'm very happy to be here before you this evening. As you know, we have a lot of great work and a lot of exciting projects happening behind the scenes. For that purpose, we have lined up 3 presentations for you this evening. The first presentation, we have invited our design team. I'll be introducing Paul in just a minute. Actually, I'll let you introduce yourself, but he's with Renaud Clark Architects. And he'll cover a more comprehensive update on the Career Technical Education Project, our CTE project. For the second portion of the presentation, I will provide you a brief update of where we are with our projects, both bond-funded and non-bond funded projects. And the last one will focus on a quick update on the Aquatic Center replacement project. So with that, I will turn it over to Paul. You want to come over? I think I'll put it on. I'm not sure how this works. Yeah, you know. See if it has.
Yeah, will the presentation be shared on the screen or?
Yes, the presentation will be shared on the screen.
Okay. I guess forward back would be my guess.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we can wait until it's there. Mr. Tippin, do you know if, there it is.
That's it. Let me just test this, make sure it works. All right, I don't know if they click, oh,
No, if you could point it to the laptop
see
right there, I believe.
there
we go.
Okay, it worked. It wasn't on, it was the on switch, everyone. Hi, my name is Paul with Renaud Clark Architects. I've been project manager there for just about 2 years, and I've been having the honor of working with Fallbrook High School there, here as well for almost the full duration of my employment here, almost exclusively on the CT project. So it's really an honor to be here and kind of help move this project and transition into the next stage of from design to construction. So I'll just briefly provide an overview of the scope just to get everyone up to speed on the changes that are going to be coming to the campus over the next 2 years for this project. So as we all know, CTE is for career technical education. That's the primary focus of the project. And the main focus of this project actually does fall over on the east side of the campus, more or less the CTE portion of the campus, which does have the metal shop, auto shop, and wood shop programs for your facility. The overall scope includes new buildings for those programs, as well as a major modernization, a heavy modernization and structural rehabilitation of Building 400. as well as a construction of a new adult transition program classroom building. As well as the additional scope we are including in this project does encompass some replacement of existing relocatable portable classroom buildings on the west side of the campus, as well as some substantial accessibility and fire access improvements to your campus as well. As you can see on this slide, just kind of lists the overall construction phasing of the project, which will essentially commence or just started commencing this month and will continue till about May of 2025. It is a phased project. So I will just move forward here. Where is the laptop? Oh, there it is. Okay. So on the CTE side of the campus, as I mentioned, we are constructing a new auto shop and metal shop and CTE classroom building. That is the L-shaped building at the southwest corner of the site here. Included in that would be a brand new auto vehicle yard for the auto shop program to store vehicles and obviously pull in and pull out as needed. This is a separate secured vehicle storage yard, it doesn't include additional parking for the campus. But on the west side of the CTE building, we are including a large area for outdoor projects that would be essentially stored underneath the large canopy area of the building. Just north of the CTE side of the campus, moving up to the middle, would be the ATP, or the Adult Transition Classroom Building. It includes 2 new classrooms, shared kitchenette and life skills area, laundry, restrooms, as well as an outdoor ATP garden that will be used for the students. And just to the west of that would be a large gathering space, and more or less could be an exhibition space for some of the CTE larger projects for putting on display, as well as just an outdoor courtyard. And just north of that is the grassy area, which is the JROTC training yard. This is sort of an accessory use to the JROTC program that will be shifting over to Building 400 as we modernize this building. Additionally, what we're putting in that building is a cybersecurity classroom, as well as a video production lab and a flex classroom as well. Just move forward. Okay. This is a floor plan of the CTE classroom. It's essentially subdivided by program. At the south, we have the auto shop, which has its dedicated classroom space. As on the left-hand side, we have the metal shop and metal shop classroom. And in between those 2 spaces, we do have a collaboration room, which is essentially welding, and it's a shared area between the 2 programs, since their programs are more or less closely related. At the north end, this is going to be dedicated to a future CTE program. There was a late programmatic change during the approval phase where the wood shop was taken out. So right now, this is going to be designed for future use. At the north-hand side, we do have restrooms as well. And moving forward. This is a floor plan of both Building 400 and the Adult Transition Building. As you can see on the left-hand side of Building 400, we have the cybersecurity computer lab classroom space. On the southwest corner, we have the video production lab, studio, and small studios, providing individual recording areas for students and staff to prepare presentations and content, essentially. And then on the north-hand side, there's the flex classroom. And then pretty much all the east side of the building is dedicated to JROTC. There'll be 2 classrooms separated by a operable partition, which doubles as a large multi-purpose space for the program. We do have a lot of storage for the uniforms, for accessories, badges, pins, arsenal, you name it, as well as dedicated offices for the instructors. And then for the Adult Transition Program building, the ATP building, like I mentioned before, we have 2 classroom spaces, and then in between is a shared common life skills area, restrooms, as well as laundry area. So, as well as a small dedicated computer lab area as well inside each classroom. Here are just a few renders shots of the proposed CTE building. The top picture is a shot from the vehicle storage yard looking at the auto shop vehicle bays and into the classroom spaces there on the right-hand side. The right-hand photo would be a view of the north side of the CTE building showing the outdoor project area under cover canopy on the right-hand side there. And then the southwest, or I'm sorry, the bottom left picture is the view from the courtyard looking at the CTE building as well, where the large projects could be showed off and exhibits could be displayed. These are just additional shots of the CTE building, the exterior with some painted graphics, as well as views from the parking lot, just showing some of the landscape improvements that would be a part of this project as well. And then lastly, a few photos of the, at the top we have the JROTC field looking at the ATP classroom building and the garden space, as well as a shot of the Building 400 exterior improvements as well on the bottom photo. This is just a kind of a snapshot of where we're at currently with assisting the district on funding. Currently, there's separate funding programs that we're utilizing. Mainly, the major one for the CTE project is an ADA and fire life safety upgrade to existing infrastructure. So any improvements to the existing campus, existing buildings that are part of this project, there's a funding aspect component related to that. So it really helps to, to improve these facilities as best we can to make sure that we can maximize funding in that aspect. That shows about $7.8 million in estimated grant funds with a district match of $5.2 million, totaling $13 million. And then there's additional funding as well for the adult transition program being new construction of $1.5 million with a district match of another $1.5 million, totaling $3 million. So overall, early estimates on this project total about $16 million. I'm sorry, $9.3 million with the grant funding. And then this is just kind of a roadmap of the project, where we started off and where we're at currently. The project kicked off back in May of 2021, and then the bid was just awarded for the project this past, or early June, with a GMP of $20 million, and construction starts and goes until May of 2025 with the project closeout of June 2025. And that's all we have.
Do they have questions?
Oh. Yes, do you have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Paul?
I do have one quick question. Do you know if the ROTC training field is slated to be turf or sod?
It is a turf sports mix, very similar to, I believe, the athletic field.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is this how we go forward?
Forward is F, B is back, yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
If they can load the next presentation, please. Or do I just click it? No, the bond program update, please.
The Fallbrook Union High School District Program Update.
Yes.
I do have a question about the CTE building, but I think this is more for the district. For adult transition program students, how can we provide support when it's raining or super hot for them as they walk all the way to the 400s?
That would have to be a future project, shading. We don't have anything right now. When it rains, students bring umbrellas. And then the heat, it's just, something that,
I understand for mainstream students, but for special education.
oh, ATP
Yeah.
is Adult Transition Program. They are 18 to 21, and they stay there all day long. They don't go to any other classrooms.
Okay, so I was confused. I thought that was special education.
It's
That's where my
special
confusion-
education because we have to provide special education students an education up to age 22. It's called adult transition because they are learning life skills, job skills to be able to live independently, but they've already done their 4 years of high school on the main campus. It's a standalone program.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
No problem.
Hello again, everyone. So for my portion of the presentation, we're going to focus again on our other bond and non-bond funded projects. This is our agenda for this evening. These are the projects that I'll be covering. We'll start off with a brief update on the baseball bleachers replacement project. We will then spend some time on the solar project. Next, we'll cover the Ag Department Portable Buildings Replacement Project and the HVAC Improvements Project. And lastly, we will close with next steps and have an opportunity for questions. Now, that being said, feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions. Our first project, as I mentioned, is the baseball field bleachers replacement project. This is actually, I want to make a correction on the slide. I accidentally didn't get the correction in time for you to get it in your packets. This is a bond-funded project by our shows developer fee, so I wanted to make sure that's clear. And the project basically entails replacing the existing concrete bleachers that are no longer, they no longer meet accessibility code requirements. Because of that, we have to replace them with basically cast-in-place concrete that would seat approximately 186 spectators. It would also include some minor accessibility upgrades to the adjacent sidewalk, the asphalt crosswalk, as well as curb ramps. This project was DSA, or Division of State Architect, approved on March 14th. We bid the project on April 19th, and we received 3 bids. The lowest responsible bidder was GEM Industrial Electric with a cost of $444,000. The Board of Trustees awarded the contract at the May 22nd board meeting. Now, we show that construction starts on June 14th. They basically mobilized and started very light modern demolition of the area. We are trying to target true demolition once we're closer to the actual forming, rebar, and pouring of concrete. We don't want them to come in and start demolishing everything and leaving an unsafe site. So because of concrete pours are not scheduled to start until the first week of August, we're starting demolition closer to mid-July so that it can align with the actual pouring of concrete. Now, this project per contract is scheduled to end November 5th, but in communication and meetings with GEM Electric, they're confident that they can complete this project at the end of September or at the latest first part of October. Now, if we can get concrete poured sooner, we'll shift and adjust and take advantage more of the summer. But unfortunately, we have 3 major concrete pours, and trying to get local companies at this point it's tough. Everyone's pretty much lined up. But we will do everything we can. Yes, please.
Just real quick, the bleachers project, just for clarification, can either of you give just a real quick explanation why this was being done now when there's other things at the school that need to be done?
Well, as I mentioned, it no longer meets accessibility code requirements. This must have been flagged. This project must have been flagged. They call them Division of State Architect legacy projects. Now, the district might be able to provide additional information of how it came to light, but it is our understanding that we're on the hook to DSA to complete it before being able to proceed with major future projects. And DSA was aware that this project was moving forward.
Yes, so it is a legacy project. We had approximately 30 legacy projects that we needed to address because the bleachers are in the path of travel to the 400 modernization. That is the reason why they have to be addressed now. If we were not working on the 400 building and not going past the baseball field area, then we wouldn't have to fix it. But with legacy projects, if they are in the path of travel, of another project that you're trying to complete, then DSA requires that it be a part of that.
Correct. Division of State Architect has a long list of all districts and their legacy projects. So anytime you introduce a new project, they go and back and refer to that list so you can comply.
That's it exactly. Thank you. I wanted to
You're
just get that on
welcome.
the record.
So unfortunately, I don't have beautiful colored renderings. This is not a very sexy project. It's a bleachers replacement project. So this is as good as it's going to get in terms of a rendering. It's directly off of our plans. It shows our work plan, basically. You can see the concrete bleachers that are going to go in, the accessible spaces for those bleachers, as well as the adjacent crosswalk, the curb ramps. Again, it's not a great rendering, but this is what we have. The next project we're going to cover is the solar project. It involves the installation of 16 solar photovoltaic carports over existing parking lots, basically the staff lot, the senior lot, as well as the parking lot next to the football field. Private funding for this project comes from private funding. I'm sure you're aware of this project. You have seen it before during Baker Electric's presentations. We are very close to receiving DSA approval. We were hoping to receive approval by June so that we could have started right after school started. Unfortunately, during the DSA review process, they came back requesting additional technical studies in the form of geological studies. Baker Electric complied. They immediately submitted the information that they requested. So right now it's in DSA's court, basically pending their final review. We're hopeful that we'll get approval early part of July, hopefully next week. Again, we're very, very close. And the builder, as I mentioned, is Baker Electric. The cost for the system, the solar system for the 16 carports is $3.7 million, with an estimated payback period after the district pays back their debt service would be in about 5.6 years. The Board of Trustees awarded the final contract to Baker Electric at the May 23rd board meeting. And Baker Electric did mobilize on June 7th with non-DSA required work. For instance, as you probably saw when you pulled in, their construction fencing has already been placed. Containers have already been dropped. They've already started dropping some of their pipes. And we'll start receiving deliveries as we move along. They just cannot start with actual construction of the solar canopies until we receive official DSA approval. The other thing that they've gone ahead and started is they did utility detection, as well as trench mapping and saw cutting the trenches. And as they work on a trench, they'll backfill or at a minimum provide trench plates while, to ensure that they provide a safe parking lot. So here's a quick rendering. You can see all 16 carports. To the west is the staff lot. In the middle section is the senior lot, and then obviously to the right is the football field parking lot. The area in the red, basically square, shows their construction fencing area or their lay-down staging area where they'll store their storage containers as well as some of their equipment. The size of the solar project is 772 kilowatts. Annual production is estimated at 1.8 million kilowatts per hour, with an estimated savings of $375,000 on year one alone, and an estimated savings of $16.3 million over the life of the solar system itself. Any questions on this? Moving on to the next project, it's the Ag Department Portable Buildings Replacement Project. The project entails the replacement of 3 deteriorated portable classrooms and associated site work. So basically, we're coming in, demolishing 3 portables that have exceeded their life expectancy, and we're replacing them with a permanent stick-built building. It'll be exactly 2,560 square feet, as well as the installation of a 12 by 40 modular restroom building and a 36 by 30 greenhouse building as well, which I'll show you the location in just a second. Funding for this project comes from developer fees, and we, again, another project that we're very near to receiving DSA approval. We're expecting to get that around the same time that we get the approval for the solar project. Hopefully, again, next week. We're down to the final comments with DSA. Our team is already working on developing the bid documents. Our goal is to put the project out to bid on July 19th. The estimated cost of this project is $2.5 million. We have a estimated start date of November 2023 with a construction end date of June 2024. Now, once we have a contractor in place, we'll be able to fine-tune that schedule a bit more. So this first slide here is the demolition plan. See if I can, well, if I point to the screen here, it doesn't point to you guys, right? It won't help. You can see to the left, southwest portion of the campus, next to the track, those are the two portables, and the one right in front of it, basically in the light gray. Those are the 3 classroom portables that are, like I said, they've exceeded their life expectancy. Those are the ones that will be demolished. The dark gray rectangle there, that is currently their shaded area. That's where they store all of their plants. That's the future location of the greenhouse building. And I'll show you the next. So this is our actual proposed plan. Where the 2 portables were at the southwest corner closest to the track is where the greenhouse, the 36 by 30 greenhouse building is going. Where the shaded area now, the large rectangle there to the right of it, is where the 2,500 square foot permanent stick-built building is going that will serve the ag department and science, basically a multi-use space. And right in front of the actual 2,500 square foot building is where the modular restroom is going. So hopefully you can see that. So the location of the 3rd portable, basically, as well as some minor ADA upgrades and some minor upgrades to the existing staff restrooms that are currently on site. Again, another requirement by DSA, basically address areas that are not currently code compliant. Any questions on this?
It's also important to point out on this project that the restroom that is being built is a dual-use restroom that will serve the home side of the football stadium that currently does not have restrooms.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And that restroom there that we're talking about, that's in the darker gray, is that correct?
The lighter gray. The darker gray is the greenhouse.
That's
Thank you.
correct. Moving on to our next project, the HVAC improvements project. The district completed a comprehensive condition assessment of all existing mechanical equipment. From that assessment, our Renau Clark Architects came up with a very comprehensive list of basically the condition of all of our systems. From that list, the district took that and prioritized based on a number of things. They took into consideration, obviously, condition of the units, the need, and available funding. There is, as you can see here, funding from a federal grant that the district is eligible for, and actually has applied and received through ESSER 3 funds. $3 million from ESSER 3 funds are being allocated for this project. From that, basically, the district selected the replacement of HVAC units at the cafeteria, at the Performing Arts Center here, and at the Media Center, as well as roof replacements at the Media Center and here at the PAC. We are another project that we're very close to receiving DSA approval. All of these projects we were hoping to have by mid-June, end of June, but DSA is just taking longer than we anticipated. But we're very, very close. Again, we're working on the bid documents as we speak with a planned issuance of July 19th. The estimated cost of the project is $3.7 million, and again, we have $3 million coming from ESSER 3 funds. The plan award our goal is to bring the recommended contractor or contract to the October 9th board meeting And basically, the way this contract is going to work, it's going to be a two-part or a two-milestone contract. Unfortunately, we're still experiencing, in our industry, we're still experiencing extreme lead times with certain items such as switchgear, transformers, HVAC units. Because of that, we're going to push this along so that it's two milestones. The first milestone for this contractor will be to procure the HVAC units, and then the second milestone will be to install them once we receive them, which is why right now we're showing a start of summer 2024 and completion of fall 2024, because actual construction will probably not start until summer. And these are just tentative dates. It'll all depend on how soon we get the contractor on board and how soon they order the equipment, which we're going to push for immediately as soon as we'll start the submittal process right after their award, so that we can get the units procured as soon as possible. And that leads us to our final slide, which is next steps. Basically, our team will continue to work with our builders, our design team, with the district on construction for the CTE project, the baseball bleachers project, and the solar project. We will finalize and issue out and put out to bid the Ag Department portable replacement project, as well as the HVAC improvement projects. Again, our goal is to come back to the October 9th board meeting with a recommendation to award contracts for the Ag project and HVAC project. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
If we could roll back to
Yes.
page 6, my question is about the solar project.
Yes.
And I understand that we're being held up by DSA. However, what is our anticipated impact to the parking lot when we come to the fall, school students coming back?
Great question. So this is one of the, we've had, as a matter of fact, 3 recent meetings with Baker Electric, because we're nervous that, we're not receiving, they're still confident that we're going to start in July. They have the manpower, they have large crews. So we met recently, as a matter of fact, on June 8th with superintendent, with Bob Salas, with the principal, to bring her up to bring them all up to speed where we are with the project, as well as our logistics plan, how we plan to attack the start of each project. We're going to treat them in sections with our goal to obviously turn over parking lot as soon as possible. The long and short of it is that we'll be substantially complete, meaning we'll be able to turn over the parking lots to the district by the start of school. There will still be some work, but that won't impact the entire parking lot. It'll be limited to maybe 4 parking stalls where they could place a boom lift and they can work underneath on the wiring. So the actual steel foundations, all of that will be done in advance, and they have assured us that they have the power, the manpower to achieve that. They're not nervous. I'm nervous, but they're not. They're very confident about that.
I understand that a lot of this is out of our control, but that's good news. If we can have the majority of that done before the
Yes.
majority of the students come back, that would be
Right, and then
That'd be
the other thing that both Superintendent Garza Gonzalez and the principal were very adamant about is receiving advance notice anytime they're going to impact a large portion that is not planned in advance. So as soon as we actually are getting ready to start construction, the minute we know we have DSA approval, we'll meet once more to go over the 2-week look-ahead schedule to determine what areas they're going to be impacting, so that we can communicate that to not only the district, but obviously the site.
Yeah, talking about parking lot, staying on the parking lot topic.
Yes.
And with the 2-week notice, I would like for our community to receive information on this in English, Spanish, and hopefully Canjobal, in terms of what areas are going to be worked on, where to park, where to drop off, where to pick up, because I know a lot of parents who time their lunches to pick up their kids and drop off their kids. So we want to make sure that they have the information, that way they're not blindsided with all this movement in construction. So I would like for us to share that information with our community, social media, emails, just so that they could know, because it can't get messy. I mean, it already, somewhat does after school with starting construction. But again, for the parents who are working and have a limited time or lunch break, this would be great for them to know.
Yes, that's why we're requesting advance notice from the contractor, so that we have enough time to notify our school community as well as the community at large.
Right,
So
and
it
if-
will be via Parent Square, so it's, again, critical that we have the correct contact information for parents so that they can get the telephone call, the text messages in real time, if they're not used to checking the website on a regular basis.
And as you know, sometimes we have to make adjustments with construction. We might provide that 2-week look ahead. We made it very clear to Baker Electric that should something shift, we still need at least 48 hours notice so that the superintendent and the principal can get the information out. So that is the minimum for just a major last minute change. It's a 48-hour notice. Otherwise, we're working 2 weeks in advance on everything.
Thank you very much. That's
You're very
a lot
welcome.
going on, so we appreciate it. Exciting,
you.
too.
So for our last portion of the presentation, Paul is going to come back up and we're going to discuss the aquatic center replacement project.
No pressure, Paul.
Walking on eggshells, no. Yeah, if you could pull up the aquatics slides, that would be much appreciated. All right, so just to preface this, before I get into the pretty pictures here. So the district did approach us several months back. This was around the fall of last year on the aquatics center itself. There's been some concerns with some of the user groups based on the current, I guess, status of the facility. So with that, the district hired RCA, Renaud Clark, to essentially bring out some specialist consultants to review the existing conditions and prepare a condition assessment report, more or less, of the pool, the pump building, the pool decking, the bleachers, the showers, everything that encompasses the existing aquatics center. At the same time, we were looking at it from a standpoint of, before we knew any numbers, what's feasible in terms of a repair project versus a replacement project. That's always the game you have to play early on to figure out what's the best value for the money you want to spend on doing improvements to a site. So with that, this was a schematic, roughly 50% schematic design that we put together early on the project. It outlines what a current facility or up to current standards would more or less have for the project or for an aquatic center itself. So let me go ahead and push this forward. So just analyzing the existing site, we looked at the current condition of parking, drop-off. We understand there's current bus drop-off at this location. There's a fire lane that runs through the south end of the campus up through the main quad area and back to the main parking lot. And at the same time, there are some legacy items, improvements to this site that were never done back in the 90s when the media center, gym, and performing arts were built. So some improvements still have not been made to this portion of the parking lot. So we encompass that, and so whatever happens to the aquatics center, more or less the site improvements to the parking lot, those fire lane, those components are going to be tied to that project as well. So we looked at it from initially just size of pool. Currently, the existing pools don't meet CIF standards. So we would be proposing a new, let me zoom in here to a new 25-yard by 38-meter pool that would essentially allow for student athletes to compete in diving, water polo, and swimming competitions that do meet CIF requirements. Additionally, with a new pool, you're essentially taking out the 2 existing pools, and you would have to provide a new mechanical room. At the bottom right corner there of this sheet, you would see the mechanical room with storage tanks, as well as separate storage rooms for acid and chlorine, as well as additional pool storage. The current facilities do have some of the boys changing in less than ideal areas, so this new improvements plan shows essentially a new boys' shower locker room, as well as separate team room, coach's office, storage, and as well as a really dedicated ticket and concession stand or entry point to the aquatics area, because currently that is lacking. Additionally, the proposed plan does show new bleachers with covered shade area as well. I'll just go forward here. These are just early concepts, but a very utilitarian design with CMU block, as well as a screened entry point as well. We are showing decorative fencing, but depending on what ends up in the project, that is subject to change. So, otherwise, yeah, there's opportunities for redoing the front entry to this side of the campus and bringing in a little bit of more as a more defined point of the campus. And then these are just additional concept renders of outdoor shower areas and entry gates. And then lastly, a couple shots of the interior of the aquatics area showing the built-in, or just showing the bleachers, covered areas as well for students. So just to kind of, I guess, elaborate on the aspect of the project and where we're currently at. So there's a lot of different avenues right now that the district is exploring for funding this type of project. Once again, there is that balance between retrofitting existing versus full replacement. It's my understanding the district did explore an option of looking into the bond to help pay for these types of improvements. However, my understanding with the bond language was very specific, that it was for classroom, science, career, education type facilities, more or less the CTE project, as well as replacement of mechanical and electrical systems only. So it's not something that it seemed like a reasonable route at this time. And then right now, we are exploring, at least on our end, the pathway towards hardship, because there are some elements of this site, specifically the pool decking, that do show signs of deterioration over time. So we're preparing at this time more or less a hardship package that goes to the DSA, Division of State Architect, for review, and then they would essentially review that and determine from their lens if this project falls out of compliance with the originally approved documents that were prepared back in the late 60s on this pool. So that's how they look at it from the standpoint, is what's deteriorated, what's damaged, what's out of compliance with those originally approved plans. And from there, DSA then provides their concurrence on, they agree that there is severe damage, or there is safety concerns, for example, that are present. And once they do agree, then we can proceed with the next step, which is sort of highlight what are the improvements required to bring this, to current standards, or to make it a more safe space for both staff and faculty. And then from there, that determines, what the minimum funding would be available for the project. So that's kind of how we're looking at it right now. We're in those stages. We've already submitted the initial hardship document to DSA. They did have comments. They sent it back to us. So our next step is to refine our submittal for phase 1 and resubmit that back, and then continue the step 2, or phase 2, once we get that DSA concurrence, which is start showing those, the minimum improvements that, would qualify for hardship funds. So that's kind of where we're at on the aquatics.
Is there a timeline for that?
Timeline right now is we are looking to get the resubmittal back probably within the first, I'd say, 2 weeks of July. And then DSA does take I don't know exactly what their time frame is for a review of that phase 1, but I'd assume it'd be a couple weeks to review. If they concur, we would then proceed to phase 2, and I'd have to map out the full timeline for the different phases on that.
Regarding hardship funds, if I understand correctly, that's far from automatic. We would be, what is the likelihood of us, A, getting hardship funds? And then the second question, or part of that is, if we were to get that, is that 100%, or is that something we would have to match, or how does that work?
So unfortunately, I'm not an expert on hardship funds. My boss, Steve, here is, but my understanding is that the hardship is something that the district would have to pay up front to do the improvements, and then you file for hardship at the end of the project, and those funds come much later down the road, could be years later down the road. So the district would have to have the money to pay for these improvements early on. So, hope that answers the question.
Do you have based on your drawings here for the full reconstruction, have you drawn up a estimated cost associated to this plan?
It's a little early for hard numbers. We did send it out for an estimate. An early estimate was around 10.5 million. But, you know, this is so early on, it's very, it's very hard to lock that in as a firm number.
You're very polite when you were describing the conditions of the pool. Appreciate that. It's some of it's bad, some of it's worse than that. So we know that. But if I understand correctly, we're going to have difficulty just piecemealing some of the repairs. For example, the deck, arguably maybe the worst condition. Can we just replace the deck, or is that likely going to cause other requirements from DSA?
The second one. So yeah, so essentially when you start working on the deck, it's going to have to go through DSA because it is path of travel. And when you start working on path of travel, it's their jurisdiction to review that. So this is kind of where the hardship kicks in. Initially, DSA is going to look at it with a very narrow lens. They're going to look at it in terms of what's a deficiency, does it not work with, or does it not comply with the approved plans, you know, back from the late 60s. If the answer is yes, they're going to provide that concurrence, and then that's when the additional plans start developing. Well, okay, so if we go in and replace that deck, how does that affect everything else that's going to be affected by that? Like, you may end up touching the edge of the pool, which may require you re-cement plaster the pool, for example. So it becomes a catalyst to essentially trigger the additional upgrades, which then provides that opportunity for additional funds because that's what triggered it through the hardship. But to answer your question, yes, there is it's very hard, almost impossible to say that with certainty that you could just go in and do that one component and, you know, be done with it. So,
Just out of curiosity, if you had more you wanted to add to that with your experience level.
go for it.
Thank you. I'm Steve Prince. I'm the managing principal and architect for the project. Paul did a great job explaining the facility hardship process. So what he was describing is the next phase of what we're having to do with DSA is to exactly show what you're talking about. It's that ripple effect. We actually have to diagram out and show, if you replace the deck, what does that do to the edge? And you have to literally design a repair plan. That repair plan then gets estimated, and we have to use a certain estimating guide, not industry standards, but it's the Sierra West estimating book that tells us what the funding would be available for it. So the target right now that we're seeing by just walking the deck and seeing what we have to do to fix the condition is probably around $1.3 to $1.5 million. We've already gotten some feedback from DSA with facility hardship, it's, unless we can prove that the building is literally falling apart or it's unsafe or something like that, it's not about full replacement. It's repairing and bringing it back up to current code or bringing it up to the code for which it was approved. So that's 1960s, so there's a lot of latitude here. Now, you can use facility hardship money and offset it with other funds and pay for the full replacement of the facility. You can just find that once you start construction, you're pulling a thread on a rug, and it just keeps going. And so we have to illustrate that and get concurrence with DSA. DSA's already given us kind of language on how to make sure that we write it in such a way where then they can bless it, and then it goes to OPSC, and then we have to go through a whole nother negotiation process. Elsa and Brenda actually have to come up with us to OPSC and actually work through that process with them to confirm the estimate, and they'll line by line item let us know what they'll pay for and what they will not pay for. And it will take about 4 to 6 months just to go through all of this, and then you'll get to funding. But but then you have to, it's the state allocation fund, so that could be sitting on a list that might have to wait another year or so before the funding's actually released.
Yeah, I feel like that was a lot of bad news.
Well, it's the process that.
Sure,
we're-
yeah, and I realize it's a long process and we're just in the beginning stages, but it's a lot of bad news for the community of utilizing the pool that's out of date, in a lot of ways unsafe. I was just asked that if there's an option for a different location, I don't know what the cost would be to establish a new location for a pool and begin a new construction on that versus demoing what we have, and that's a whole nother
Well, actually,
ballpark question, but
we're working with the consultant that's doing your long-range facility master plan, and we can fold that into the dialogue. We're still kind of mushing through that right
yeah,
now.
I don't know if that's an appropriate dialogue to have at this time, but that pool's been there since 1960. It's not CIF compliant, it's dangerous, it's unsafe. That might be a discussion that we
Having two kids
have.
that played water polo for LCC, this was a hard pool because both of them were over 6 foot, and it's tough on the shallow ends to play water polo.
Yeah, so maybe a discussion we have another time, but I appreciate you coming up to explain all that stuff.
Pleasure.
Real quick, I'm sorry, if you can just clarify, you gave us a number, an estimate, I understand it's an estimate of 1.5 million,
1.3 to 1.5 is what we're currently tracking right now.
and that is to do what exactly?
Basically, you would have to repair in kind based on the 1960 approved plans.
So that would be repairing the decking or
And
all
we're
of the?
repairing the decking. What was originally kind of starting this process was, there was the thought of there was a leak in the pool. We did actually have a geotechnical report performed and found that there was no evidence of leaking. What we're finding is that because the pool deck is open, it's roughed up. The water from natural play is just splashing out and it's leaking out that way. And it's a normal level of water loss in a pool of this size.
So I'm sorry, my question is, the 1.3 to 1.5 includes,
The deck, parts of the rim, some utilities in the equipment room. We're pushing a little bit because the electrical system and everything is rusted out. And so we're having to reframe some of the ways that we're illustrating that. So it's a process, and I don't know, it's very hard to explain other than if I had to roll a set of drawings out and actually point it out to you.
What about chemical storage? Is that included in that 1.3 to 1.5?
We do have chemical storage, but in 1968, there was not the requirement of separating chlorines and acids like we do today. And so that's part of the argument of trying to do an addition to the building, that we have to separate it because you can't put those two chemicals in the same room. And currently, the acid that's being stored where the electrical, it's what's causing the rusting and all of the, in the pump house.
what I'm trying to find out, and you guys are both very helpful, but if I shake the piggy bank and get all the money we can, I'm trying to figure out if 1.5 million is going to, it sounds like we hopefully would be able to take care of the deck, possibly the equipment room. Is that, and those are the two big ones, is
I
that
don't
correct?
want to tell you that right now because we're literally in the middle of the process trying to see how far, when you pull on fixing something, how far we have to go.
Okay, I
In
understand.
my professional commitment to the district in this process is we try to find try to get as many dollars back from the state as possible on this. So that's why we're going through this due diligence process. It takes some time. I will tell you that the estimating book that the state uses is not in alignment with current market values. So even if the state gives us 1.5, 2, it may be a $2 million project in San Diego-based marketplace. And so that, once we get that scope, we'll run two estimates so that you'll know this is what the state's going to give you, but this is what our estimate based on the market is.
I know there's a desperate need to get that repaired, but I just want to caution the board, obviously, that there was a comprehensive assessment of the entire aquatic center, basically. Trying to fix just one area limited to the deck because of limited funds is just putting a Band-Aid on it. All of your systems, your entire, essentially, facility has exceeded its life cycle. Trying to spend money on putting a Band-Aid would only result in probably having to come back and tear out or touch something that you just spent or invested money in. So I would caution to do that and do it right. Because it has exceeded its life cycle, the correct thing would be to attack it once and attack it the right way, rather than trying to continue to throw money at it and putting Band-Aids on it.
I absolutely understand what you're saying, and I agree. I think just for the board members here, and the audience and everybody else, we're under a little bit of pressure here because this is a problem that we, the three of us, the four of us, five of us, are going to have to fix. We've inherited it, and I don't know, looking at that pool, how long we can wait for another bond. That seems like eternity when looking at the conditions there. So I understand your warning, 100% get it, and I appreciate your estimates, and I understand those are estimates. Just try to do the best I can to get all the information I can so we can make the least bad decision we can with what we've got here.
Right, absolutely.
That being said, any other comments or questions from the board?
I did want to add, I know that a big concern of the community is what is going to happen if the pool breaks down. We still don't have a new one. Are we basically eliminating all of our aquatics programs, which would be swim, diving, water polo? And we are not. We do have a contingency plan. We are able, which we've done in the past, to use the pool at Camp Pendleton. Obviously, it would be extra cost to the district, but it's costs that we are willing to bear to transport students there. Now, there's also the availability of Vista Wave, where we could transport students to. The liability waivers are already in place so that we wouldn't lose any time in having to get the paperwork in place to be able to use those facilities. It may be inconvenient for students because then it would be at a time that they dictate to us or when it's available. The other thing that we've done, if the board recalls, we had the pool pump break earlier this year. We were told it was going to be a 1 week or 2 week turnaround to fix that, and it ended up being a month, which we were not expecting. But for those parts that tend to break frequently, we now have the parts in storage so that when it breaks, we've got the part, we can fix it as quickly as possible, because we do know that there is the supply chain issues that may or may not affect some of what we're doing. One of the things that was left out of the presentation, because it's still in the very early stages, is we are looking at upgrading all of the electrical for the district. When that is done, it will touch the pool, which may shave off some money of the cost for that. So again, there is a contingency plan. We have the parts in place. The intention would never be to shut down those CIF competitive programs and not have them available to our students. I know that Ms. Mefford was here when we used Pendleton before, I believe. I don't know if she has anything else to share regarding that.
Thank you.
No, that you said it. We transported the students there and they used the pool, but there is a busing cost to that.
And again, thank you for all three of you for the updates.
That was C. The presentation that we added is from our Citizens Oversight Committee. As you know, the Citizens Oversight Committee oversees the bond expenditures, and once a year they provide a presentation to the board. So I'd like to welcome Sherry Weishart, our Citizens Oversight Committee President.
Because you haven't had enough numbers tonight. How's it going? So you all have a copy of what I'm going to read, so I'm just going to read through it for you, and we'll get to questions at the end. So as the acting chairperson of the Citizens Oversight Committee, I am pleased to present our consolidated report on our meetings held during the fiscal 2022-23 year. Our committee, established on March 13th, 2017, continues to uphold its mandate of ensuring that funds associated with Bond Measure AA are spent as outlined in the measure's ballot language. It's essential to reiterate for the board and the public the specific bond language that guides our operations. As approved on the November 8th, 2016 ballot, Bond Measure AA funds are to be used explicitly for the improvement of the Fallbrook High campus. More specifically, Article 13A, Section 1, Subdivision B3 of the California Constitution authorizes the expenditure of these funds for the construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or replacement of school facilities, including the furnishing and equipping of school facilities or the acquisition or lease of real property for school facilities. Consequently, as per Article 13A, Section 1, Subdivision B3A of the California Constitution, no bond revenues are expended for any teacher or administrative salaries or other school operating expenses. This serves as our guiding principle in the oversight and approval of bond expenditures. I do want to reiterate really quickly that that's the Fallbrook High campus only and does not include the other district campuses. In the fiscal 22-23 fiscal year, the COC scheduled quarterly meetings and reviewed a range of bond expenditures covering various projects. These included electrical upgrades, modernization projects, infrastructure improvements, and more. You have an itemized list of those projects on your copy. In our meetings held on October 20th, 2022, November 15th, 22, and March 21st, 2023, we conducted a thorough review of the bond expenditures, with the total for the 22-23 fiscal year amounting to $15,380,561. Key infrastructure projects were the highlight of these meetings. They included the modernization of the media center, the cafeteria, and electrical upgrades. Particularly significant was the discussion and the approval of the aquatic center proposal, a new addition since the last reporting period. We also reviewed plans for future projects such as the 400s building modernization and the construction of the new CTE STEAM building. We received the 21-22 Measure AA audit report, which showed a healthy financial status for the district. The fund balance stood at $29,411,628, with no findings reported, indicating prudent financial management. We suggest that this positive report be shared with the community through various channels, including local media. Our meeting also involved organizational matters. We approved digitally signing our minutes due to travel restrictions and addressed some of the upcoming resignations and new member appointments. Notably, 4 new committee members joined us this last month, June of 23. So in conclusion, the Citizens Oversight Committee remains vigilant in ensuring the prudent utilization of bond revenues, guided by the specific bond language and our committee's bylaws. Our focus is to keep the district accountable and transparent in its financial dealings, and we look forward to continuing our service in the upcoming year. Questions? Nothing? Great.
Thank you for the time that you take to, to meet and discuss all these numbers.
All right. Brings us to public comment. The Fallbrook Union High School District Board of Education encourages and invites the public to comment on agenda and non-agenda items. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Per legislation AB 1292, the board will give twice the allotted time to a member of the public who utilizes translation technology or requires assistance to address the board. Total public input on any one subject will be limited to 20 minutes and may be extended at the discretion of the board president. Comments on non-agenda items can be heard at this time. Comments on agenda items may be taken now or when the agenda item is being discussed by the board. Speakers are called in the order that they are submitted. Do we have any board comments? Public comments?
We do not.
All right. Thank you. Communications and reports. Start with our reports from board members. My left, Paul, do you have anything?
I do not at this time.
I don't think I have, it's been busy. I don't think I have anything to report either. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to report on two items. A couple weekends ago, I attended the Del Mar Fair, obviously in Del Mar, and it was really great to see our Baile Folclórico students performing. We had high school students who performed for the first time and dance, Baile Folclórico for the first time, and then there are others who were more experienced. But, they performed at the fair, and it was really amazing to see our students there. Again, I want to reiterate that some of them, just wanted to join a club and, be part of, you have something around their culture. And it was really great seeing, the Mexican, Guatemalan culture, being highlighted at the Mud Fair and attaching that with Fallbrook High School. It was neat. And I want to thank our staff members who attended and, supported our kids all the way. So that's for one. And number two, I'm also teaching summer school at Fallbrook Summer Academy. And something that I noticed that was really neat is that we have some high school students volunteering during summer school. So it's really neat seeing some of our high school students walking, TK, kinder, first graders to the bathroom, to the lunch tables, reading with them. So, I asked around, I'm like, hey, who are those teenagers? They're like, oh, those are Fallbrook High kids who want to get the community service hours in. So, yeah, again, it was really neat seeing them, and I know that there is a second session coming up, and some of the folks reached out to me saying that they would like, to invite our high school students again to volunteer in the classrooms during summer camp. I asked them for the information so I can share that. They will send it to me in an email, and as soon as I have it, I will share it with the staff, with our district, and hopefully we can get it out so that our kids can give back and, just be positive role models to our community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Report from our superintendent.
Yes, Trustee Caralapio, thank you. I did see your post on the students, Ballet Folclórico, so thank you for always promoting the good things that our students do. The first session of summer school ends tomorrow. The second session will begin on Monday. A reminder that we will be closed on Tuesday in observance of Independence Day. For this reason, summer school will be in session on Friday. As you're aware, after tonight's presentations, we have a lot of construction taking place around our campus. This impacts our parking lots and student drop-off during the summer months. We ask our community to be patient, and we are communicating changes as we receive them. And finally, tonight is bittersweet. Carmen Hatcher, my executive assistant, is attending her last board meeting in this capacity. I'm sure she'll be back as a member of the public just to watch us. But tonight is her last night here as executive assistant. I want to thank you, Carmen, for your dedication, for always having a listening ear, always making sure I'm headed to the right meeting, because sometimes you're like, where are you going? It's not in that direction. With everything that I need, because there have also been times where I'm walking out the door and you're basically handing me my materials. Thank you. Most of all, I want to thank you for your friendship. I'm going to get emotional. And you're going to be missed more than you realize. And I have 33 roses for you, one for every year that you've served the district. Thank you.
I think Ms. Hatcher had a speech prepared.
I think it starts. Can I leave now?
Thank you, Carmen, for all of your years of service, and I apologize for all my late forms.
Carmen, I really just want to say the same thing. I haven't been a board member that long, but it's been a trying couple of years, and I really appreciate how hard you've worked and what a good job you did keeping me on track and informed and everything else. You really really helped me out, especially in my first year and a half trying to navigate this stuff. So thank you very much. You're an outstanding person, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd share a quick thing. The small town of Fallbrook, Carmen shared with me that she was actually in my dad's junior high class. He was her teacher, and then worked with my mom at the high school. So indirectly go way back. She has my sister's wedding. So it's Smallbrook, but she goes way back, and she has a special place with me. I love hearing stories that she tells about my family. So I've already talked to her. She knows how I feel. I'll leave it at that.
And with that, I'd like to introduce and welcome Jackie Mesa, our new executive assistant. She has some big shoes to fill, but I know that she will be able to fill them and do an outstanding job. So welcome, Jackie.
Thank you.
All right, agenda items. Let's get started on the meeting here, huh? Or are we gonna need a break, or are we good?
I think we're good.
Keep going, okay. Let me know if something changes. Number one is Superintendent Human Resources, and this is an information item.
Yes, this is our usual information item on revised new and deleted board policies, administrative regulations, and exhibits. Ongoing reviews and updates are necessary with board policies and administrative regulations. The review enables the district to ensure the policies, regulations, exhibits, and bylaws conform to state and federal law. We compare policies, regulations, exhibits, and bylaws with the California School Board Association recommendations. And additionally, the review serves as a reminder to the governance team and staff of the operational principles and implementation guidelines for the district. This is an information item only for first reading and will be placed on the next agenda for action.
Thank you. Number two is similar. This is an action item. This is also for revised new and deleted board policies and administrative regulations, and I'll need a motion on this, please.
I move that the board approve in the second reading the revised new and deleted board policies as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Garlampia, Ms. Christensen. Any questions or discussion? All right, Ms. Garlampia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant. Number 3, also an action item. This is Fallbrook Union High School District annual notifications for 2022 and to 2024.
Yes, the Fallbrook Union High School District and every school district.
I think we need to approve first.
Oh, that's right, you're right.
I move that the board approve Fallbrook Union High School District annual notification as presented.
And I'll second.
All right, motion by Ms. Garlampia, second by Mr. Christensen.
Is it my turn now? The Fallbrook Union High School District and every district in California is required to annually notify pupils, parents, and guardians of their rights and responsibilities pursuant to California Ed Code 48980. An acknowledgement of receipt of this notice must be signed by the parent or guardian and returned to the school as required by Education Code 48982. It is actually part of our registration process. Parents have access to it electronically and can also ask for a hard copy. The document is both in English and Spanish, and also includes the education code, penal code, government codes that are referenced in the information provided.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion? Mr. Garlampia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant. Section B is business services, action item, local control and accountability plan, and LCFF budget overview for parents and annual update. And as an action item, again, we'll need a motion, please.
I'll go ahead and motion for the educational services, the action plan, local control and accountability plan with the LCFF budget overview for parents and annual update.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Mr. Garlampia? Brenda?
No, actually, it would be Ms. Toon, but if you recall, this was an information item At the last board meeting, Ms. Toon provided a PowerPoint presentation. Unless there are any follow-up questions to that, it is now coming back to you as an action item.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Carlampia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Area 1 and Area 2 are both vacant. Number 5 is an action item. This is a state dashboard, local indicators update. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and accept this action item as stated. Can I have a second?
Aye. I second.
Mr. Carlampio, thank you. Ms. Toon, you want to give us a brief explanation, please?
Good evening, President Jones, Superintendent Garza Gonzalez, and members of the board. Carmen, it's sad to see this be your last meeting, but thank you for being a stable force here at the district. What I am bringing to you this evening for action is our state dashboard local indicators update, and our local control accountability plan includes actually 8 state priorities that we are required to meet. And so all of these, there's 5 of them listed here, are also included in the LCAP, but these are pulled aside separately, and we indicate them as being met on our state dashboard, and there's a report to explain why and how each of these has been met. Basic conditions at schools is specific to appropriately credentialed teachers, functioning facilities, and instructional materials for all students. Implementation of state academic standards centers around the work that we've done in curriculum alignment and common assessments. Parent engagement is about establishing relationships for our parents, and you see that in our local control accountability plan, but you see some additional explanation in this document here. Local climate includes a lot of information from our California Healthy Kids survey, and a highlight there, we've actually had a lot of stability, but we do look at connectedness for students to school, the relationships that they establish with adults on campus, and school safety and how our students perceive school safety. A lot of that data has remained stable since 2018, and we're looking to improve a lot of that, and that's really centered around our trimester system and Warrior Pride time in terms of trying to move some of the needle for some of those areas. But a positive area to highlight is we have had an 11% increase in students' perception of our safety on campus. So that is something that is a pleasant thing to see in the report. And then last but not least, also something that we are trying to address in our trimester system is the access to a broad course of study and making sure that all of our students have equitable access to that broad course of study.
Yeah, reading the report, aside from the increase in safety that our students are feeling, it's also pretty happy to see that the suspension rate for our English learners has decreased. In 2019 and 2020, I believe it was 11.5%. And then, the most recent data shows that it dropped a great amount. So, it's really great to see that decrease in suspension rates to our ELs. And I'm pretty sure interventions and, our MTSS tiers of support have helped, and hopefully they did. So I believe that's heading towards, the right direction.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Toon? Thank you. Mr. Carlampia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant and Area 2 is vacant. Thank you. Number 6 is also an action item. This is for Ivy School textbooks adoption for the science environmental systems. Action item will need a motion, please.
I'll go ahead and motion for the Ivy High School textbook adoption for science environmental systems.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen and Mr. Carlampio. Ms. Toon, another description on this, please.
Yes. Environmental Systems is a course that Ivy High School has been trying to bring. They actually started by looking at an agriculture course. They are in need of additional elective course opportunities for students at Ivy High School. So environmental systems and societies serves as an elective option at this moment in time. And we have our one science teacher who is there who's done a review of 3 different textbooks and has settled on SAVAS as meeting the rigor and the needs and aligning also to the standards and the work that we've been doing across the district for all of our courses.
Just as a reminder, these textbooks are also available to our parents and community members.
Yes, these textbooks will have, we have actually more of a card in the Parent Center because these are primarily digital. And so normally we have the textbook itself there in the Parent Center, but when our teacher was doing the review of the materials, all the materials that he was reviewing have been digital access. So we have a demo access available for parents.
My only question, you said just one science teacher reviewed the 3, chose the 1. Not that there's a lot of controversy with environmental sciences, but is there a checks and balances from other, or input from other science teachers or instructors with any type of background that would review or confirm or deny, you know, the accuracy or you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, at this moment in time, sorry, I thought somebody was going to speak. At this moment in time, Ivy's a little bit unique. So normally our textbook review process goes through an entire department, but because Ivy is such a small school and we have the individual teachers, it did go through that single teacher. We also don't have a course like this that mirrors at Fallbrook High School. We have an IB, International Baccalaureate, Environmental Systems and Societies, and so that textbook is specific to that program. We also have AP, Environmental Systems and Societies. It is something we could look at in the future, but because we didn't have a course that exactly mirrored, we allowed the teacher to look at and review the 3 different materials specific to that school since it's only being offered at Ivy High School.
And it is my understanding that there is a form that the reviewing teacher or, you know, when it's more than one, have to complete that basically asks, you know, is it balanced? Is it representative of all cultures? Does it have the California state standards, things like that? And that form is available, so it's not just word of mouth, but actual evidence and pointing out page numbers of where that material was found.
Yeah, if that, again, it's not a controversial topic necessarily, but somewhere accessible, well-known, not hidden in the weeds as far as the demo or available information from that textbook. I'm sure a parent could look it up and read a lot of stuff too, but just being new curriculum, letting that out there so parents are readily available to look at it.
Overtly transparent. Yes.
Just had a question. I remember, I think it was Fallbrook High, we were talking about digital textbooks, and we also had textbooks available in the classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
This is Ivy. Is that not happening with this?
So the textbook that the teacher reviewed, he specifically had some textbooks that and things that he was looking for. And so in the textbooks that he reviewed, a lot of this is supplemental resources that accompanies a actual handheld textbook, but what he really wants to utilize is those accompanying materials that are all much more digitally accessed through SAVAS. The traditional textbook adoption, for example, for a 4-core, this is an elective course, comes with the textbook along with all of the supplemental materials. And that's where we have, yes, we like to have a handheld copy, especially sometimes our students with disabilities prefer to have a handheld copy than accessing it digitally. But these particular materials are digital.
And I'm sure this is covered, but I just want somebody to tell me that all of our students up there at Ivy are going to have all the technology they need across the board so that nobody's not able to access this.
I think maybe 2 points to that. Yes, our students are consistently getting access to technology, and our teachers are continually being asked to use technology in the classroom. But in addition to that, what I probably should have also mentioned is even though these are digitally accessed materials, the teacher has access to them, the student has access to them, but the teacher can also print them and then provide those tangible copies to students as well if they need them.
All right, thank you. I have no more questions. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Mr. Carlampia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant. C is business services. Number 7 is an action item, so we'll need to have a motion. This is to adoption of district budget fiscal year 23-24.
I move that the board approve the adoption of the district budget for fiscal year 23-24 as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Carlampio. Mr. Christensen? Ms. Mefford, can you give us a brief description?
She has a PowerPoint presentation.
I thought she was going to have,
Okay, last board meeting at the public hearing, I went over all the details of the 23-24 adopted budget. Usually I do not have a second presentation here for action, but I made some changes in the multi-year projection. So I'm just very quickly going to review and show that the revenues did not change at all. Our total revenues, unrestricted and restricted, are $41.5 million. Our expenditures are almost $47.9 million. That changed a little bit, but not much. What I really wanted to bring to your attention this evening is the multi-year projection, because it really coincides with another item I have on the agenda tonight. The multi-year projection, as per education code, we have to show that we can make all of our fiscal obligations in the current plus 2 years and still have a 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. Our district implemented a 6% reserve a few years back. So when I go through the beginning balance of 23-24, it's 11.5 million. The revenues, the expenditures, as I just showed, there's a deficit of 6.3. I know that looks alarming, but it's not, because what that really is a lot of 5 million of that is the one-time funds that we received in the current 22-23 school year that we were unable to spend, so we are carrying those over into the 23-24 year. And a lot of that is actually part of the plan that we plan to spend over consecutive years. It wasn't supposed to be spent in the first year. So our ending fund balance is 5.1 million. So the restricted reserves are 4.5. And those restricted reserves include the 3% reserve required by the state, our additional 3% reserves to equal a 6% reserve. The $100,000 commitment to the field and turf that the board approved a few years back, and the new increase in the restricted and commitment is I'm asking the board later in the agenda to commit $1 million of our unrestricted ending fund balance towards the pool. I know it's a concern. You heard tonight how much it's going to cost, all of the details that are involved with it. But there are some things that may come up now, and I just think that it's in our best interest to commit. Because when you commit something, it is committed and it cannot be undone. I can assign fund balance on my own, and that can be changed. Commitment can only be made by board action, and then it can only be uncommitted by board action. And the reason I brought up about the chemical storage and all of those, because that is something we are working on now to try to implement and improve that. But we don't have the money in the budget for that, so I am asking to commit that down the agenda. So I just wanted to show how that affects our ending fund balance. By doing that, then it is no longer available in the reserves. So our unassigned means that's just whatever's left. It's not reserves, it's not committed. We end up with about $500,000. So our total available reserves are 7%, and that's in effect at the end of this year and in 23-24. So during that time, if we do need to spend that money, then I would come back to the board asking to uncommit it, and I would show where we're actually budgeting it and for exactly what specific cost we would be budgeting that money. And then, so we flow through to the multi-year projection, not too many changes there. And so the ending fund balance in 23-24 becomes the beginning fund balance in 24-25. And there you take the revenues minus the expenditures. That's our deficit. We're almost balancing our budget. And so the ending fund balance is $4.8 million. Our reserves there just have the 6% reserves and the 100,000 commitment that we keep retaining for the turf. And so then our unassigned is 1.6. That's an overall available reserves of 10%. And then that ending fund balance becomes the beginning fund balance of 25-26. Add the revenues, subtract the expenditures. You end up with a deficit of just under $400,000. Again, the ending fund balance, the restricted reserves, same, just the reserves. And so then we end up with $1.4 million. And what I want to show, though, the reason that the expenditures do reduce is because in the 23-24 school year, we do have budgeted the $225,000 for the special board election. So that's only in the current year. It will not be in 24-25 or 25-26, so that's a reason. And I also, in the 23-24, added 5 additional teachers for trimester. And in 24-25 and 25-26, I reduced our utilities because I'm banking on the solar being up and running, and we will actually see some of the savings. So I reduced the utilities by about $325,000. There is a reduction in certificated and classified staff that kind of coincides with the declining enrollment. So since our revenue is declining, it's only fair to show in 24-25 and 25-26 that we would need to decline our staff as well. So that's the reason for those, and I just wanted to point out since I made such a drastic change in the ending fund balance. Any questions?
Yes, thank you. My question is, we're in contract negotiations right now. Are these numbers all going to change again very soon?
So we haven't started the contract negotiations for next year. What we are currently negotiating are the impacts and effects of the trimester schedule. Negotiations for the collective bargaining agreements for the Fallbrook High School Teachers Association will start most likely once school starts in August. That's the first part of the question, and you can answer the second part, Ms. Medford.
The second part is we're looking at changes when we go back in negotiations to these numbers, correct?
Yes, because currently what this budget does have included is the 0.9% increase for certificated staff due to the additional days required by the trimester schedule. That was already agreed to, that's in the budget. So I did not include anything for increases. So if increases are awarded, that will definitely change these numbers. And I just want to point out our excess reserves, we do have to state why we have the excess reserves. And so the 1.2 million is the additional 3%, which is our district's requirement. And then the 714,000, that's the declining enrollment due to revenue loss. And that's just because our enrollment is so uncertain, as I spoke last time about the change from enrollment day to P2. So I'm just being very conservative, and that's why we're keeping that excess reserve. That is all.
Thank you. I have no questions. Do either of you have anything you'd like answered? All right, thank you. Mr. Carlumpia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant. Number 8 is an action item, ratification of site lease and facilities to Erickson Hall Construction Company as selected, lease back 2023-03, contractor for the CTE project, Fallbrook High School.
I move that the board approve the ratification of site lease and facilities with Erickson Hall Construction Company at Fallbrook High School as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Carlampio and Ms. Christensen. Ms. Mefford?
Okay, Erickson Hall Contracting has been awarded our leaseback contract. In April, the board awarded them as the contractor, and then in May, the board approved that the gross guaranteed maximum price was going to be $20,024,612. The reason we're back approving the documents tonight is because at that time, we didn't have all of the contract documents. The agreement was there for LLB. But this time, it's inclusive of all of the contract documents, including the site lease and the facilities lease. So that part was not included. So that's the only thing that has changed from when the board approved them as our LLB contractor.
Pricing didn't change. It was just, we finally got the documentation and filed it, more or less.
Yes, that's exactly it. And I asked because it seemed a little bit redundant, and I'm like, well, we already took the agreement, we already did the guaranteed maximum price, and our attorney says yes, but the site and facilities lease were not part of that, so it's okay to be over-inclusive because it is a $20 million project. So he's like, I just think it's in our best interest to take it back and approve all documentation by the board. So that is what the item is.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Carlampio, how do you
Aye.
vote?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Christensen.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant. All right, seems similar. Number 9 is an action item, Resolution 29-2223, supporting award leaseback agreements to Erickson Hall Construction Company for Fallbrook High School CTE project. Ms. Medford, if I could get a motion and a second on this, please.
I'll go ahead and motion for the resolution supporting award of leaseback agreements with Erickson Hall Construction Company for the Fallbrook High School CTE project.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Christian and Ms. Carlampio. All right, Ms. Medford.
This resolution is the supporting documentation that shows the process for the leaseback award. It shows the Exhibit A and B. They show that we published it and the way we were supposed to. It was published in the local papers. It was published in the time frame it's meant to be published. It shows the scoring that was used to select the contractor, and it's just to show that we followed all of public contract law guidelines, and we did everything we were supposed to do. That's what this does.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, Ms. Carlampio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones also says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant. All right. Just a couple more here. Number 10, action item, Resolution 30-2223, fund balance policy and commitment of ending fund balances for facilities repair.
I move the board approve the resolution number 30-2223, fund balance policy commitment of ending fund balance for facilities repairs as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Carlampio.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. First and second. Ms. Mefford?
This resolution breaks down the various parts of ending fund balance, the non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. Like I went over in my multi-year projection, in order to commit fund balance, you have to have board action. So this resolution is asking the board to commit funds that do not lapse at year end. The formal action required to commit fund balance shall be by majority vote, which can be obtained through the adoption of the annual budget, by passage of a resolution, or approval of a board action item. The action to approve committed funds must take place prior to June 30th of the applicable fiscal year. If the actual amount of the commitment is not available by June 30th, the process or formula necessary to calculate the actual amount must be determined as soon as information is available. That's why why in our ending fund balance of the 22-23 school year, I'm asking to commit that million and carry it over into 23-24, where I will come back to the board once we know what we need to spend that money on, and then ask you to uncommit it and give me authorization to put it in the budget in the appropriate account code.
I think it's great looking forward and having an action plan for something, especially of facilities like the pool, the incidentals. My concern with that amount of the allotment is that we are starting our negotiations and with the teachers. And I don't know what that number is gonna, if it does change, what it changes to, and we've committed money, you know, things start adjusting. Either we're taking away from teachers who are the primary source for our students, or we're coming back very quickly to uncommit something that we're trying to fix. The 1 million is a small drop in the bucket compared to what the gentleman and woman were speaking about today for the pool, but I'm all 100% want to support the pool and have an action plan moving forward, but my only discrepancy or holdback would be that negotiated item, those numbers changing. Now we're allotting $1 million toward something that is a much bigger issue, and we're kind of, you know, pigeonholing ourselves into the teachers' negotiations as well as the pool. That would be my concern for that amount of money, but I do support having some action moving forward toward the pool. I don't know what that number should be, but I would hesitate on a greater amount or the $1 million.
So just, Ms. Medford, a question. We're moving the money from a fund, and was that earmarked already for facilities? Or where did the fund come from? Where did the $1 million come from now?
No, we're not moving it from a fund. It is in Fund 1, but if you don't commit it, then it rolls into ending fund balance, and then it's unassigned. And then unassigned is just like our extra money, and so that would definitely be on the table for negotiations.
Okay, thank you. And we listened to Paul and Paul's boss, I can't remember his name, sorry. Steve, thank you. And they were doing the best they can to give us information, but obviously there's a lot of unknowns. So I guess my question is, what is our best guess here on when the board is going to be able to get some more updated information on a lot of those unknowns that they were talking about, such as dealing with the state as far as catastrophic money, that's not the right word, but I'm looking for a time frame on when we would have more of an idea.
So as Paul Christ mentioned, the hardship application was returned. They are working on those revisions to resubmit. They were given very specific language, so it's almost like they were given the okay if you change it to look this way. I would say that by the end of August, we would have information on that hardship application, right, Ms. Mefford?
That's probably next steps.
Yeah. And part of the reason there's a schematic design is that we are trying to shave off some of the time for when we do get the money. We don't spend 6 months just trying to come up with a design, that things are ready to go.
Thank you.
So is it coming to this board meeting today because it's the end of the fiscal year, or is it something that can be done when we have updated numbers?
It can be done when we have updated numbers in the 23-24 budget, not in the 22-23, but in next year's budget, yes.
So next June.
No, I right now committed it in 22-23 and 23-24. So it would just roll into ending fund balance, so then we would have more unassigned money starting 23-24. And then in 23-24, if the board decided to commit it, then we would budget it at that time.
But it might not be there. The 1 million could have a negative impact on an ending fund balance at that time, where right now you've kind of established that it keeps us above the district established reserves.
We're above the district our district established our 6%. This is in addition to that. With this commitment, we end this year, and this is, we end next year with $500,000. So with this, then there's more money available for the bargaining units. So if it was committed, it would not be available. And also then that way we show that we are working on a plan, because I know the community has said at the last meeting, what are you doing as a district? You're looking for hardship funds, but what are you doing with district money to help the pool, to help the facilities? So this was an attempt to say we are trying to put some district funds away to help with our facilities. That's what the intent was.
And the other major difference would be that this is a one-time expenditure, and salaries, benefits, et cetera, are always ongoing. And we are looking at a uncertain financial future with the state, and we don't have the actual state budget yet, correct? Not until October, which is different from past years.
Yeah, we have the state budget, but we're not sure about the revenues because of taxes. So they've done the best they can, but they're still a little volatile, more than they have been in past years, absolutely.
So I think the $1 million is a high allotment. I want to do everything we can for the pool. I understand that there's a huge concern from the community. I also want to know that our teachers are being supported financially or compensated accurately and being consistent with surrounding school districts so that we're getting teachers to come to us. I know that there's, in the future, less teachers going through credentials, so our pool to hire is going to be less. We're also going to a trimester, so we're hiring 5, but then potentially having to decrease staff because of enrollment. There's a lot of different factors that have already been mentioned that concerns me to put $1 million into a committed fund, which can be uncommitted, but it becomes unavailable for various things. If that number is, say $500,000, that is putting it toward plans, architectural stuff, whatever it might be towards the pool. It's still a drop in the bucket, but we're making a commitment of $500,000 to put toward the drawings and the future of it, based on some numbers that we won't have until potentially end of August. The state fiscal outlook is not the greatest, so then dropping our reserves, even though they're above our district of 7%, that's a lot of money to commit to something with a lot of uncertainty ahead, to turn around and have to uncommit it. And I think that looks worse to the community, that we committed something and now we're uncommitting it because of the uncertain times that we're foreshadowing already. I would just hesitate us on $1 million and maybe cutting that in half, and moving forward and seeing, those numbers as they come back with negotiations, the state fiscal responsibility, the future of the state in enrollment, and then that can be addressed again next year as those numbers come out and we see that the state economy transition either up or down. We can readdress next year with a higher reserve in preparation as we're going through a lot of construction and uncertainty with construction. I've been through a lot of construction and there's a lot of mishaps or unknowns. So I would hesitate that much money, just as there's a lot of uncertainty.
Paul, I appreciate your insight in that, and certainly this is difficult either way because we're trying to make a decision and everything is unknowns. Oscar, do you have any opinion or
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing both sides, obviously with, the community needs and also negotiations. Um, Thinking 750,000, and I can see where Paul's coming from, right? But I do think that the pool, I've been there recently, and it does need a lot of support. So, quarter, three-fourths of $1 million, think is something I'd be a bit more comfortable with.
Yeah, my only, going to 500,000 puts our reserves up over 1 million, of the uncommitted anyways. And as I hear the state budget that they've been discussing and coming out with, more and more information that cuts to a lot of the different infrastructure of schools, or the, the arts and media of the California, I'd rather have more in reserves for the incidentals and the uncertain times ahead than putting a set amount that I think $500,000 gets us a long way with architectural plans and unknown funding, hardship funding, different budgetary constraints that we don't know, and committing a large amount with a lot ahead of us with negotiations and trimester, new teachers, declining enrollment. I think the more we put in is putting ourselves in a more of a dire position potentially by the end of the year. So, I mean, I'm committing up $500,000, which I think is great to get the pool in the right direction with a lot of unknown and hopefuls. I mean, I'm hopeful for hardship money. I'm hopeful for, a citizen to donate millions of dollars for a pool, but, I'd rather be prepared conservatively, financially for the uncertain times ahead.
Yeah, I guess the way I see it, that pool is there's a couple things about that pool that are in really bad shape. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to be working. Both the condition of the deck, which isn't going to get worse, but it's arguably not safe. The condition of the mechanical in there is pretty bad. I don't know for sure, in fact, probably not, but I'm hoping somebody is able to come up with some sort of a solution that can get through DSA and fix some of these problems to get us down the road, but I don't know what those look like. If we do get, and I don't even know if $1 million is enough to do that, but I don't think that pool can wait as it is now for much longer. And I guess what I'm saying is, I understand all the things that we're saying. We want to take care of the teachers. Education is most important. I agree with all that. But I guess at the expense of possibly not having a pool for a long period of time, is where I'm. Either way, I will agree with you, or I will concede that we can put the money, $1 million transferred and earmark it for the pool with the option of rolling it back, or we could leave it where it is now, hoping we'll be, kind of tomato for the most part. But I would, if you haven't yet, I would take a look at that pool, because I think we have a responsibility to do as much as we can to help that, or we get out of the pool business for a period of time. That being said, I could go with either. $500,000, $750,000, $1 million. I wish we had more, but we don't, so.
Just have one last question for you, Brenda. The ending fund balance, 5.1, and then moving that 1 million, or whatever number that we assign. If in 6 months from now, 3 months from now, if we allotted a $500,000 to that commitment now, in 3 months from now, that pool goes down and they say it's $750,000, we utilize that 500,000. Is there anything restricting us other than a board meeting to come and have an action plan to allocate $250,000 to continue to fix that difference, if you will?
No, because actually, if if we committed 500,000, then we would end up with the unassigned ending fund balance would be 1 million. And then that way we have that 250,000 in that unassigned. It's not assigned to anything, and it would be there. I would then just come at either first interim or second interim, asking the board to approve increasing the budget by that amount.
Okay, so if I understand, if we allocate $500,000, we're able to utilize the $1 million that's in the unassigned for potentials. I understand the pool is in terrible disarray. And I agree it should be fixed or money set aside for it, but I'm only looking long-term of numbers that we don't know, and an economy that we're unsure of. So, I don't, do I have to motion for, move for a motion
Miss-
to change it?
Ms. Hatcher, could you provide direction on that?
You have a standing motion, so you can either take a vote on the motion right now, or you can make a modification to your current motion. So you can vote this motion down and make a new motion, or you can modify the motion that you have made.
So, I'd like to modify our motion, for the fund balance, to change it to a $500,000 allotment commitment, thank you, moving forward, with also the understanding that there's a high potential for an increased cost of replacement things, but at least we're starting with a $500,000 with the uncertainty ahead.
Okay, so we have a motion to modify the original motion from $1 million to 500,000. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it. So now, instead of going from 1 million and then maybe going down, right, in a couple board meetings to say if we don't need the 1 million, we can bring it down. So now we're starting at 500,000, but potentially moving up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what I was saying was, if we move it to 500,000, that puts us $1 million, it still puts us in $1 million or over $1 million in an unassigned account that can be utilized in the future for the potentials if something was to break. Is that,
Yes, so we're reducing it, but it's getting earmarked for the pool. And then in the future, of course, they can be moved either way, increased if there's funds available or moved out as necessary. All right, so we have a motion and a second to go ahead and modify the motion. We are now, if there's more discussion, if not, our next steps will be to vote on the modification, and then we will vote on the actual motion itself. Does that sound right, Carmen? So, does anybody have more discussion on the modification? Okay, regarding the modification, Mr. Carlampi, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones, I say aye. So now we have a motion on the table, which is everything we had originally, but now the numbers are $500,000. Is there any more discussion on that topic? Mr. Carlampio, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant.
President Jones, could we take a 5-minute break?
Yes, that would be great. All right. Thank you for that. Short intermission. Number 11 is an action item. We're getting real close here. Action item number 11 is Resolution 31-2223, declaring the fertility of bidding for the extension of the first student transportation contract and approving a 5-year contract extension. Action item will need a motion, please.
I move that the board approve resolution number 31-2223 as presented.
Thank you, Mr.
second.
Garlampia. And I think I heard Christensen second. All right, thank you. Ms. Mefford, can I have a explanation, please?
Yes, First Student has been our transportation provider for at least 15 years, I think longer. But we currently have a 3-year contract with them, and in every contract, you agree to it for 3 years, and you have a 2-year extension. Well, it's time, the contract is up, and so we want to do the 2-year extension. But actually, we've been working with them on reducing our routes. We've been working with them on, they have bought some vans. So for some of our special needs students, we're using some of their white fleet as opposed to an entire handicap bus. And so what we would like to do is we're asking, instead of increasing it 2 years, if we could increase the contract 5 years. And we went back and looked. When we've gone out to bid, there's been very few bidders. And the 1 year there were 2 other bidders, and then one pulled out, and the other one was higher. So First Student ended up being the winner of the bid. And so we reached out to legal counsel and we're like, okay, we have to do this. Is there any way that we can do 5 years instead of 2 years? If we could work out rates with them. In the contract now, it always says that they will increase every year by either whatever the consumer price index is or 3%, whatever is higher. And so usually, but they will never exceed the 3%. The CPI the last few years has been 10%. Last year it was like 10.7. And so they could only increase by 3%. So we did look at some rates and we thought, okay, if we could do 5 years, we looked at maybe we could have a 7% rate in 23-24, 7% in 24-25, and then 4.5% in the following 3 years. Which, looking at transportation and the increases in everything else, we thought that would be a better deal for the district to have those limited increases instead of going out to bid and kind of then we risk if somebody were to come in, sometimes they come in really, really low in their first year and then they increase it in the outer years. And we have such a good thing going with them in our transportation plan, and their customer service has been great that we just didn't really want to go out and risk going into somebody new. And so that's why we were asking, instead of renewing it for 2 years, if we could renew it for 5 years. And with all the data, the attorney did agree that it would be futile to go out to bid when we could just keep the deal that we have with them. The relationship's great for just 3 additional years instead of the 2. That's the bottom line what this resolution does.
Is there an update on the electric buses?
Do you mean the grant that, yes, and we were not awarded that. So I know they're working on other things, but that one, no.
Yeah, and all of that information did go out in the Friday letter back when that was going on.
Okay, thank you.
Is a, like you said, 7% increase, 7% increase, 4, 4, and 4. So over the next 5 years, we're looking at I don't know what that number is, 24% or 20%, 14. I don't know what that percent is over 5 years. Is that a normal increase? Is that, it seems like you're going up 25% over 5 years.
Well, we go up 3% every year, and when we started looking at pricing, because if some were coming in at like 23%, when we were just getting an idea, should we do this? What would their pricing be? We actually asked for student. If we didn't, and we just did 2 years, they said then your first year would be, it was going to be a 23% increase because of their wages have had to go up and to find drivers. So they said, they're like, we could work a deal with you if it's 5 years. So it would be the 4.5. But every year it automatically goes up 3%.
Okay, so the increases are not abnormal or high, low, they're just, it's a kind of a standard. Okay, thank you.
It's kind of a standard, and it would kind of avoid that 23-24 increase of the 23%.
All right. Yes. 5 years is a long time, but I'm surprised, I'll be perfectly honest, that they're that low. So it sounds like we're locking in, it sounds like a good idea. So I have no further questions. Anybody else? Mr. Garlampia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant. Consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered by the Board of Trustees to be routine and will be enacted in one action. There is usually no discussion on these items prior to the time of the Board of Trustees votes on the motion unless members of the boards request specific items to be discussed or deleted from the consent agenda. So this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Mr. Garlampio, I assume no discussion or questions. Ms. Garlampio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Jones says aye. Area 1 is vacant. Area 2 is vacant. Organizational matters. This is the appropriate place on the agenda for members of the board to request the superintendent to provide further information regarding items discussed at this meeting and/or to request that new items of business be placed on future agendas. I'll go ahead and start. We just had a brief discussion. Ms. Mefford, with the change that we did in item 10 that had to do with the amount of money going to facilities from $1 million to $500,000, does that change anything in your multi-year projection, item number 7?
Yes, it does. It changes the ending fund balance, the restricted portion. The ending fund balance is still 5.1 million, but instead of having restricted, reserved, committed of 4.5 million, it would only be 3.5 million. So the unassigned ending fund balance would then be increased to $1,039,599.
Okay, so, but it was a change of $500,000. I just want you to check your arithmetic once more and tell me it's good.
The restricted portion is then 4,080,989.
And the undersigned goes to $1,039,599.
Yes, that
Okay.
number was correct.
All right.
I just took out 1 million instead of 500,000.
So now that we've talked about this, is there any further action we need, or are we good now?
I don't believe so, Mrs. Hatcher, is that?
No further action is needed if all you're doing is changing the paperwork there. And you've already approved the budget. It's not changing any of your totals. It's just internal with your numbers.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
just
for
the
that.
unassigned ending fund balance has now been increased, and I will note that on my SACS documents.
All right, thank you. Okay, organizational matters. The other board members, are there any organizational matters for future meetings?
I just have one, a lot of controversy in a lot of different school districts. I'd like our flag policy identified, and I'm a big advocate on flag etiquette. We fly them at the fire station, we fly them all over the place. Being a firefighter, 9/11 means a lot to me, and I'd like to keep our school out of the news, out of the controversy. If we could identify our flag policy and keep it with the flag etiquette for the future of United States flag, California flag, and no other flags. We're opening a door of all different groups that want to be identified to fly a flag throughout the year for every month. I think if we could identify just keeping those two flags as our flag etiquette in the future, that would create less controversy. This is our policy. Not that we're not supporting any other groups, but that we are abiding by the flag etiquette. Being right next to Camp Pendleton, I think that's a very big component of our town, and I think that it restricts opening the door up for a lot of different conversations of different flags.
I will look into the flag policy if that is the direction of the board.
I guess my question is, and I don't know what our current flag policy says, but this is pertaining to flagpoles outside the front of the school, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, noted. Thank you. Any other organizational matters?
So I will bring the policy as an information item for discussion. I did have a question, if no one else has anything under organizational matters. At the last board meeting, President Jones, you requested information on the aquatics facility. We had a lot of information tonight. Is there something that was missing or that you would like for me to bring back at a further time?
I'm going to ask the board for a little help on this. Obviously, a lot of moving targets on this. Does the board have any interest in having a board workshop specifically on this one topic where we would be able to meet with constituents at basically a special board meeting solely to discuss the aquatic center, provide information and hear feedback? Does the board have any interest in doing that as a additional special meeting or specifically a board workshop?
I'd be very open to it. I think we have a giant hill to climb, and any input from the community would be helpful. If anybody has $10 to $15 million they want to throw at it, that'd be great. But some future planning as far as how do we come up with a plan and how do we fund something that's potentially $10 to $15 million for a replacement versus a reconstruction or refab. I'd be very much open to that, to get some insight from the community as how detrimental it could be without a pool for the next unknown.
All right, thank you. That kind of supports my idea. So we'll go ahead and start to organize that, and that'll be like I said, a separate meeting. We'll have to obviously check our schedules and everything else, but we'll start working on that. Thank you.
Could we potentially schedule that for the beginning of August? And the reason for that is we do have a presentation on the facilities master plan where a lot of community input has been gathered, scheduled for the July 24th meeting. So if we could do that after that so that the board at least has that information?
Yeah,
Would that be
I would be
acceptable?
gone from the 1st to the 8th of August, but 24th to then, or directly after that, I'd be available.
Yeah, I think we could coordinate yes, I agree. I think we could coordinate an exact date offline, but yes. Any other organizational matters? All right. Time and date of the next meeting. The next regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees will be held Monday, July 24th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. here at the Bob Burton Performing Arts Center at Fallbrook High School. Adjournment. There being no further business before the board, the regular board meeting of June 28th, 2023 was adjourned at 8:09 by President Jones. All right, I'm gonna